Utah. Guys, welcome to the Coach Approach podcast with a very special guest of Mr. Joe, the Olympian Joe, the natty bodybuilder. How are we, mate?
Got my
Oh, he's wearing
t-shirt
the
on.
t-shirt
Look,
as well.
yeah.
I
I wore it
didn't.
to the gym this morning, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna leave it on. I didn't train in it. I just wore it to the gym. I'm not that.
How are you doing,
Yeah.
mate? You're all good?
I've got changed since my workout. Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you, man. Yeah, pretty good.
How's
Yeah,
how's Thailand?
yeah, it was really good. Went to Singapore for a few days and then Thailand for like 9 days, and yeah, it was really, really good. Had a
When
great
I
time. Little bit jet lagged now, can't lie.
when I saw
Still
you at the gym, was it yesterday or Wednesday? You were like,
Wednesday, yeah,
I
yeah.
might just leave because I'm so tired and I got a headache.
Yeah, I didn't leave. I pushed through, but yeah, I had such a bad headache. I think it's jet lag related. Awful. Never get migraines, but I had such a bad headache from it.
Mm.
But it
Do
takes it out of you, doesn't it? Just being on a plane for that long.
you eat food on a plane or do you just keep to
I
hydrate?
I did this time when I've flown for competitions in the past. I've basically not eaten any food on the plane because it can lead to loads of water retention. Is what I've been told, and it seems to be a really good strategy to eat very little whilst flying right
Mm.
before competition.
Do you know what? I've just done that naturally now over the last couple of years, and I feel 10 times better. I used to eat a lot. When I went to Australia, I didn't eat on the flights, and they were like
Mm.
13 hours. I was absolutely.
Well, that's a long time to not eat. Yeah,
I stocked up at the airport. I
you
ate a
did.
lot on the
But
air.
actually, on the plane, you didn't eat.
Yeah, on the plane, I didn't eat. Yeah, I did go to the all-inclusive lounge and spend 50 quid, and I abused the buffet a bit too much and the cookies and everything.
Okay, your money's worth.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But I actually kind of fucked it up a little bit because I thought it'd be quiet, but it was just full of families and kids, and it was horrendous to be honest. I was in the
Really?
corner. Yeah, mate.
The VIP lounge.
Yes, mate. And I was like, outside is much more quieter. Why am I in here? But I've already paid. But
We
yeah,
did look at going into one of those lounges to just have a shower because we've been walking around Bangkok for the day to get all hot and sweaty, and then went for like a night flight. I thought I really would love a shower now, but it's £50 per person to go into this Coral VIP lounge. I was like, I'm not paying that for a shower.
it depends how much you value being washed and cleaned.
I just had a little armpit wash and a
Yeah.
basin in one of the toilets. Got a few funny looks, but so
I
what?
did that. I did that in Australia when we stayed at Shanghai. When we stopped over, well, I said me, stopped over at Shanghai. I got everything prepped. Had a toothbrush, had
Yeah,
everything on the plane, and I got baby wipes and just did that
that's the
under
way
my
to do it,
armpits.
mate. Yeah, festival wash.
Yeah, the old festival rush. How you feel, mate? All good?
Yeah, all good, bro.
Feels a
Literally,
bit pissed off
no,
today because he couldn't get a haircut. So, did
yeah,
you?
I've not been able to get my hair cut this week, so I had to do the podcast just. And funny enough, the last podcast we did, someone asked Dom, "When's Phil going to cut his hair?"
Yeah, that was a Q&A.
Never is the answer.
Uh,
Oh, I heard that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, when do you get a haircut every Friday?
Every Friday, bro. So
That's
literally,
mental.
when we're done here, straight to the barbershop,
That's got to get expensive.
bro. Honestly, they've put the prices up here, and I'm crying about how much I'm spending monthly on trims, but you can't do without it at the same time.
No, no.
Just do it, Joe. Just do it yourself now. Do you do it
Yeah,
yourself?
I do. Yeah, I'm actually going to grow it back out a little bit. I've realised that maybe I went a bit premature on the skinhead. Maybe I've got another few years left of longer
Yeah, you
hair.
got a few years left on that, mate.
Yeah,
I
I think
said
so.
this
Yeah.
at the beginning. I said when you shaved it, I was like, Joe, mate, what are you doing? Like, bring back
You
the
were
hair.
scared of me. You seemed genuinely horrified.
I thought you just came out of jail, mate, to be honest, with all your tattoos and everything. Like, Jesus, like honestly, it was I thought I was gonna get smacked.
I'm not that kind of guy.
No, then you went, hi Dom.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
so are you training at performance the same as everyone else that was at Boss now, or
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I've gone over there temporarily. I am going to try the new gym that's opening up, gym location.
yeah.
I'm a little bit put off by their marketing strategy. I think it's quite an attention grabbing strategy. They've got a fucking slide in the gym, which I think is a total gimmick, and I'm not really interested in that. But I am going to try it because the kit looks good. It looks like a
yeah,
good big space. I'm going to see what it's like. I train at 6 a.m., so a lot of the kids won't be in there. Sorry if I've just offended any kids who train. You've got to start somewhere. But I
yeah,
like to kind of have a quiet workout, get on with it.
Do you
not
think the
the.
slide is their unique selling point, just like Tesla and their fart machine?
I haven't heard of that. Tesla got a fart machine.
You not see? Have you not heard the fart machine at Tesla in the Tesla cars?
Oh no, maybe that rings a bell actually. Maybe I've heard of that. I think the slide is basically just a attention grabbing marketing tool.
Mhm.
I did hear that Stephen Bartlett had a slide in one of his offices for the same reason. I don't know the full story about that.
Blue slide, I think they called it.
Right.
I read in his book.
I think their marketing strategy is to get as much attention as possible. Someone told me this morning that they're going to have one of those punching things that you get at fun fairs in the gym as well.
I was literally about to make a joke about the next thing they'll be doing is having a punch bag in there. Now you just said that they
Oh
will.
my
So.
days.
Well, a punch bag is one thing, like for like people to do boxing training. But this is one of those, where it measures the strength of your punch.
You'll soon have those things where you throw a ball and got to hit down the cans, and if you get them all down, you win a teddy bear.
The fun fair in the gym, yeah. So, I mean, we're taking the piss out of them, but I am going to become a member there, like at least for the first month, see what it's like. And fingers crossed it'll be good. If not, I'll be back to PFG. Thing with PFG is that it doesn't really have opening hours that suit me on the weekends. I
Mm.
want to be able to get in the gym early. I like to train 6 a.m. every morning, including weekends.
So
Yeah,
Scott,
I've never understood that. Like some people get to the gym at 6 a.m., but personally, I can't.
5:30 some mornings.
I've never been able to train in the mornings. My body feels fragile. I feel like everything's just gonna break. What motivates you to be able to get up for the gym at that time?
It's not so much motivation as it is habit now and routine.
Mm.
Obviously, if I went to bed at the time I used to go to bed when I got up a lot later, I wouldn't be able to handle it. But I go to sleep at about 9 p.m. nowadays and up just before 5, and then potentially in the gym from half 5, 6. One of the biggest challenges around training that early is like digesting your pre-workout meal.
Mm.
But again, my body, I think, has got used to it now, and I tend to have cream of rice now before my workout, which digests pretty quickly and easily for me, and doesn't sort of sit badly in my stomach while I'm training.
What flavour?
What flavor? I've got a CMP one at the moment. It's choco caramel. It's nice.
Oh, I hate caramel, but I
Well,
love.
what is cream of rice for those people that might not know what it is? Obviously, I know what it is and have seen it, but personally, I've never used it myself. But a
Yeah,
lot of
good
people
good
don't know what
question.
it is.
Yeah, I did think before coming on we should explain things like on this podcast because I wanted to talk about like some of my competitions and stuff, and I thought I shouldn't say things that people might not understand. Like I should explain what natural bodybuilding is, for example. But let's
Mm.
explain what cream of rice is. So it's like a rice powder, like a rice flour almost, ground rice with added flavors, like flavorings. And you mix it with boiling water and it makes a paste. It's a bit like baby food, if I'm honest, which sounds very strange.
Like
Uh,
porridge.
a little bit like a really fine porridge, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. But you can mix things into it. Like I had it this morning with banana and then whey protein. So yeah, it's just very easy to digest, and that's why bodybuilders love it.
And you can get different flavors of that, yeah.
Yeah, loads of different flavors. Yeah.
I
Trained
saw
by
someone have a
JP.
blue one before.
So a perform one, did you say?
No, I saw someone having a blue one before, and I tried one
Blue
mouth.
one?
I don't know what flavor it was, but my
No.
brain didn't understand the
Bubblegum.
concept of like rice being blueberry flavored. So I was like, yeah, not for me.
Well, no, you can get all kind of fruity flavored ones. They are pretty nice because the rice powder itself is pretty flavorless, so they can just add whatever to it.
Yeah.
I had the what was it, the disco biscuit?
Oh yeah, that's CMP as well, isn't it?
I thought it's when you tagged me in your own how to make cream of rice because I was really struggling to get the perfect consistency and I
Mm.
still can't do it. Well, I can, but I just takes a bit. I think you need the right flavor. When you haven't got the right flavor, I don't think all shit hits the fan.
It takes a bit of getting used to, I think, to prepare it to the desired consistency. Some people have it and they absolutely hate it, but I've got used to it now. I quite like it.
I have rice cakes now if I'm really early
Yeah.
and I can't have my porridge. So I'll have rice cakes, strawberry jam, bit of peanut butter now. My calories are a bit higher, help the digestion a little bit slower, and then a banana on the side.
Yeah. I was having porridge pre-workout, but with that time frame, getting to the gym early, it just didn't work for me. It didn't digest well enough.
Yeah, yeah. It's all person dependent, isn't it, with the foods? I found it worked really well, especially on leg days for some reason. Like I just felt a lot stronger when I had my porridge over my
Porridge
rice cakes.
power.
Yeah, porridge. Um,
There's a really successful natural bodybuilder, actually, Scottish guy. I can't remember his real name, but his Instagram name is Fueled by Scottish Oats.
Oh my God. Oh, I guess most people.
David Kay, that's his name. Very, very good bodybuilder.
Yeah. And does he have a lot of recipes for porridge pre-workout?
I don't know. I'll have to check his Instagram again, hopefully.
Oh. Um, Mate, I've actually got quite a few questions I
Okay.
wanted to ask you on this podcast. Now, Phil doesn't know you probably as well as I do, but these questions are still things that me and you probably still haven't really spoken about when we've trained.
Yeah.
Most of our training has got, most of our conversations is always about training. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a really interesting podcast to kind of delve into you a little bit more. I'm sure Phil's got some questions, I'm sure, like throughout the podcast. But I wanted to ask you the very first one, and I know you've spoken about it a little bit in your Instagram before about getting into bodybuilding and where you were before, because you were quite a latecomer when it came to
Yeah.
bodybuilding.
Yeah. Definitely.
What was that turning point? At what age were you, and why did you go into bodybuilding? What was your why?
No, let me go back really far. Yeah. When I was about 15 years old, some lads come up to me on Solihull High Street, group of about 6, 7 lads, up to me and my mate Matt. We'd done fuck all. And they said, what you been saying about us? Kind of thing started on us, as you get, you know. Normally, you just leg it off or you just sort of diffuse the situation. But this one lad punched my mate Matt, and then another lad punched me in the face. And he had a big sovereign ring on, you know, like the circular rings.
Mm.
Split my head open. I've got a scar here still from it. I don't know if you can see. Went down on the ground. A guy from Timpson, the key cutters, came out and picked me up and took me into the back room of his shop. All the kids had run off by this point. But that experience made me think, okay, I need to avoid that from happening again. When something bad happens to us, it's natural for us to start to think subconsciously or consciously, how can I avoid experiencing something like that again? My strategy was to get in the gym and get big. And I thought, if I can get big, that could be a deterrent. People leave me alone. And I knew that I couldn't fight, and I'm not an aggressive person particularly. I didn't felt like I didn't have it in me to go and do martial arts or something like that. So I thought I'll just try and get big. And I failed miserably at that. Started training probably at about 16. I never really knew how to train. Just went to like a what became a Bannatynes. I think they were Hilton Living Well, like a health club at the time, my girlfriend at the time, and wanted to get big. And I suppose started to build a foundation of muscle even from that early age and got into training, but really badly. And I'd kind of go on and off. I'd do it for 6 months and then maybe get into marathon training, half marathon training for a few months. And it was just really on and off, inconsistent, all through my 20s like that. And then probably got to my mid 30s and thought, do you know what? Like I've been looking at Instagram and stuff, following bodybuilders on there, got quite interested in it. I thought, do you know what? I'm really going to commit to this. I'm going to get a coach, and I'm going to I'm going to see how good I can look by the time I'm 40. This is my mid 30s by this point. So I think to backtrack a little bit, that experience of being a victim of like a violent crime gave me the incentive early on to sort of build muscle and be bigger. Should have jumped on gear really. That would have probably helped. That's one of the
And
seeds. I
shaved your head.
suppose watching like watching like 80s action movies as well, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, like Sylvester Stallone, all that kind of thing. That I'm an 80s kid, so all that kind of stuff, seeing like the muscle guys, wrestling as well. I was really into WWF wrestling as it was at the time back in the 90s.
WWF.
It used to be called WWF, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when it was WWF. Dom, you should remember that. You're older than me.
Mate, I don't watch WWE, mate. I watch real UFC stuff. Do you know what I mean?
They're the real fighters. Yeah, but
Oh,
I
God.
suppose all of that combined to give me the incentive to train. But like I say, I just wasn't consistent with it enough, and I didn't take it seriously until my mid 30s, really. And then the first time I competed was when I was 40. I
Mm.
competed first in the Masters.
Wait, so if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now? Because this is our first time talking, so I
Yeah,
actually
it is. Yeah,
out
nice
now.
to meet you, Phil. I'm 43 now.
That's mental.
Yeah,
I would not have guessed that.
surely the hairline gives it away.
That's because you shaved it, mate. You're literally you're open to that.
People are losing their hair in their 20s now, so
Yeah.
Can I ask you,
Yeah,
when you got Lewis, isn't it, your
yeah,
coach?
my coach is
Did
Lewis. Yeah,
you did you look at it as that long term, like your mid-30s ago, I'm going to get a coach for this amount of time, or it was just I'm
no,
just going to see how it goes?
I saw it initially as a 6 week thing because I signed up with him on a 6 week like fat loss program,
Mhm.
like a fat loss challenge. Didn't win it. One of his other clients won it, ironically. But yeah, after that, I just kind of stayed on with him. And probably we went through kind of lockdown. It was right before lockdown that I'd signed up with him. And then we went through lockdown, home workouts and all that. And then a couple of years more down the line, I'd noticed some of his other clients that were in our WhatsApp group, they competed. And I started looking at that and thinking, I'd quite like to have a go at that, but I'm quite scared. What if I look like an idiot? What if I'm not good enough? Um, the posing looks really difficult. And I kind of shied away from it for a bit. And then Lewis and I actually met up and went to the first ever Arnold's. They put on that expo at the NEC.
Yeah.
Well, the first year they did it, and subsequently they've done a professional bodybuilding competition on the final evening of the expo. We went along to that, and Ryan Terry won the men's physique that night, and Nathan Diasha won the open. Samson Dowder, who won the Olympia last year, he came second to Nathan Diasha. So it was a real spectacle, and we were both really um, kind of um, inspired by it. I was looking at the men's physique guys going, maybe that's kind of achievable for me, but obviously on a natural stage. And he was looking at it thinking, I want to be a classic IFBB pro, which he now is. And so that really inspired us both. And I spoke to him after that about competing, and we put a plan in place for me to do a show, which I did in 2022.
So he wasn't as big as what he was now as he is now. He was.
No, back then he was amateur, classic physique. He'd started men's physique before I met him, and then he'd been doing classic for a few years. He tried to get his pro card for several seasons running. I think 2021 he came close. 2022, I think he came. It was either 2022 or 2023. He was 1 point away, and One Punch Naz, who some people might know, who's gone on to be a very successful IFBB pro now, went to the Olympia last year out in America. Naz beat him by 1 point. So Lewis was 1 point away from pro that year. So I saw him fail to get the pro card narrowly on a couple of occasions. And then 2023, I think it was, he finally turned pro in Spain. So yeah, ironically, I turned pro before him.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, by accident, and I can say more about that. And he pointed out that irony that we didn't see that coming, and I turned pro in my own federation before he did. But he's there now, yeah.
What does pro mean for people who might be listening and going, "What the fuck is he talking about?"
Yeah, good question. Okay, so within bodybuilding, you've got open bodybuilding where you are allowed to use steroids and banned substances, performance enhancing drugs, which WADA, who govern like the Olympics, for example, wouldn't allow. So that's the open bodybuilding. You've then got natural bodybuilding where all of those kind of substances are banned, and they enforce that through um, making athletes sign declarations, making them be open to having a urine test on the day of the competition, and some federations use lie detectors as well. So you've got that distinction to start off with natural bodybuilding versus open bodybuilding. You've then got various federations within each camp who are like organizations that put on competitions. And one of the other things they do is give out pro status, which can then lead to competing internationally and entering to win prize money as well. Although it's not that much prize money in natural bodybuilding, sadly. I think I won €100 in Denmark last year and $300 in America.
That was actually going to be one of my questions was like, what's the rewards from getting to that kind of level in bodybuilding? Because you see a lot of people getting into the gym and straight away they're thinking about competing or training to get on stage. But
Yeah,
what's the like? I don't really know the rewards from it, so I wanted you to
Good question.
tell us.
it's all ego, mate. Ego boost. No, I mean, if you are in the top flight of open bodybuilding with those guys on stage who are using anabolic steroids, the big guys, top of the field, Samson Dowder, who won the Olympia last year, British Nigerian guy, got Ryan Terry, who's like a veteran British bodybuilder in men's physique. You've got lots of successful American athletes as well, for people from all around the world. Chris Bumstead, everybody knows, obviously, in Classic, who's just recently retired. If you're at the top flight like that, you can earn a lot of money. It can be your career as a pro. Some of those guys have done really, really well, and they've got other business ventures as well. But in natural bodybuilding, it's doesn't grab as much attention because we're not as big naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't got as much muscle mass artificially, so it doesn't get as much attention. It's a little bit like women's football compared to men's football. So it doesn't have the attention, it doesn't have eyes on it, and therefore it doesn't have the money. So the prize pots are far smaller, sadly.
What another one of my questions was, what made you choose the natural route as opposed to doing steroids? And
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, it was initially about starting off natural at the very least. And I'd advise that for anyone really who wants to compete and would consider using steroids in order to do that, in order to enhance their physique. I would say start naturally and see what your potential is there, see what you can look like and what you can achieve naturally. I did that, and I suppose I never really had any fixed intention of doing that as a stepping stone to becoming assisted and using steroids. I probably wouldn't have, regardless of the experience I'd had. But I had a really positive experience competing naturally. I won my first regional show, went on that same year to be invited to the British finals and won that. I hasten to add, I won those amateur competitions in the Masters men's physique category, so over 40s. Just want to stress that. But yeah, I found that I kind of really liked the community within the UK DFBA, which is the federation that I competed with, but within the natural bodybuilding scene in general. I really like the philosophy of it. What can be achieved naturally? What can the human form look like without any chemical assistance? What is that genetic ceiling? Well, not even a genetic ceiling, but a ceiling of our species. What can we end up looking like? What can we achieve?
yeah.
The other thing, obviously, is the health implications of using anabolic steroids and other substances. Yeah, it's widely researched that there are a lot of negative impacts that come along with using performance enhancing drugs, and I'm not really up for that at all. You know, I'm not willing to make that sacrifice, potentially take years off my life to get significantly bigger and accelerate the process of growing muscle. I totally respect people that have made that decision if it's an educated one, and there's no substitute for hard work. Those people that are using anabolics, performance enhancing drugs, they still have to work bloody hard, and I respect that, and I respect what can be achieved. But it hasn't been for me up until now, and I say that because there might be a point when I do use TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. Is it therapy or treatment? Either one. TRT.
I think it's either or with that.
Yeah. I might at some point do that for health benefits because, you know, with testosterone dropping off as you get older, and I'm not a young guy anymore, you know, that can cause negative effects on your mental health, energy levels, libido, all that kind of thing. So if I experience a lot of that in the future and I get my blood tested and it shows that I have very low natural testosterone, then I would consider no longer being natural and using testosterone.
That was actually one of the Q&A questions.
Okay, yeah.
By someone, will you stay natty forever?
Yeah, so there was a question mark over that recently. Last year, I spent quite a long time in a deficit. I did a mini cut in the first part of the year, and then I did a full prep a bit later on. And I got very lean, obviously, because I competed in the autumn. And with lower body fat levels, your testosterone temporarily drops away quite low because body fat will dictate hormone production to a large extent. And so testosterone gets really low. With that, for me, came lots of issues around my mental health, mood, stability of mood, resilience, emotional resilience, all that kind of stuff. Not to mention other things like libido, that drops off with testosterone dropping right down, energy levels. So I thought, I'm going to get my blood tested a few months after my competitions. And if my testosterone hasn't bounced back, for those reasons, those mental health reasons mainly, I will consider jumping on TRT. I probably will if it's very low and give up being natural. That would not have been an easy decision because I'm giving up my participation in that natural bodybuilding scene in the community. I would never be able to compete again. It's not a, you can dabble with performance enhancing drugs and then go back to natural. You can only be natural once. So
Would
it
you
would
compete
be a
would
huge
you compete
decision.
in like a federation just to reiterate for anyone who might be a little bit confused, federations is pretty much a natural competition with loads of sub competitions which you can be categorized based on how tall you are, on how much muscle mass you have, what age you are. So that was something that confused me when I first learned about that. So just for anyone who's a
Yeah.
bit unsure
It
about
is
federations.
it is confusing, yeah. I mean, you've got various different federations. They're the organizations that put on the competitions.
Yeah.
But then in each competition, as you say, there are lots of different categories that you could enter. So if you're really, really big, like heavily muscled, you could put on your little pants, like your little G-string, and get on stage
All right.
as they call that an open bodybuilding category or bodybuilding. You've then got classic physique. They wear like briefs, which are a bit bigger. Chris Bumstead does that. And slightly less muscled, more. It's hard to describe what the judging criteria is, but a nice aesthetic flow to the physique, big legs still. And then you've got men's physique where you wear the board shorts. So quads are technically not judged, although they do play a part in the judge's overall view of you. And it's more then about a less muscled, very aesthetic physique, big shoulders, big chest, big arms, that kind of thing. The posing is different. And then obviously you've got all the female categories as well. So at any given bodybuilding competition, there could be 30, 40 classes that day once you've got all of the different gender classes, the different categories, and then the different age ranges within those categories. You've got juniors, you've got open, you might have short and tall, as you mentioned. You might have masters, you might have grand masters over 50s. So, yeah, it can get confusing.
Yeah, so for anyone listening as well, yeah, just know it's a minefield, and there's so many categories that us bodybuilders can go into, and it's never the rules will be slightly different, and the posing will be slightly different, and that's kind of as much as most people really need to know, I would say, from that point. But I was just gonna say, do you feel like you would compete in a enhanced steroid competition if you were to take?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. If I had gone down that route, and if I do go down that route in the future, that's definitely something that I would consider. Yeah, yeah.
Joe will
So
be competing with.
PCA might be a federation I'd compete with, or possibly even two bros. But if I did give up being natural and go enhanced, it would be TRT only. I'm not really interested in using lots of other substances to get as big as possible. So I'd have to look at a federation which isn't looking for an absolute mass monster because I wouldn't stand a chance. So you have to be a bit strategic about what federation you pick and what they look for when they're judging. That's getting quite technical. Anyway, the kind of conclusion to the story is that I got my bloods back. My testosterone levels are in a good place actually for my age and for the time that's elapsed since I was on prep. There's 17 nanomolar for what that means to anyone. It was pretty much bang in the middle of the healthy range that Medichecks laid out for me. So I was really happy with that, and I'm staying natty.
You'd love that. And one of my questions was, as someone who competes at a high level, that as you do naturally, is there any supplements or food that you might take that's going to particularly help you with increasing testosterone or keeping testosterone high? And like I say, supplementation as well that keeps you within that natural category, or do you just eat healthy, eat on plan, and that you just worry about what's happening with your testosterone later?
Grams and grams of creatine.
Down the whole pack. No. So my answer to that question really is that it's much more about lifestyle, from what I understand. And you may know more about this than me. You may well do. From what I understand, sleep, getting good sleep is a big factor. Having a good diet is a huge factor, and training itself and increasing the amount of muscle mass you have and being very active will all lend itself to keeping testosterone as high as possible as you age. I think that there are supplements that you can use to boost testosterone production, which are natural substances not banned by WADA. But I always say if it's not been banned by WADA, it probably doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, they would have banned it.
There was one I used to take called, I don't know if you've heard of it, called D-aspartic acid, which is apparently really
No.
good for boosting testosterone, and it's natural. But
No. There's Tongkat Ali, which is a plant-based thing. There is terkesterone and tribulus, I think. There are various substances, and I have been encouraged to take them or look into them. But when I have looked into them, there are very few randomized controlled trials that have looked at their efficacy, and those studies have revealed little to no benefit. So I think, for £40 for a month's supply, I'm not really up for taking something that's going to be marginal gain.
Yeah, you got to look at cost-effective cost, don't you? A lot of people, I have that. A lot of clients. I always say my job is to keep costs low for you as best you can, and then if you have the disposable income to do so, I'd rather you buy health supplements. Like maybe your multivitamins, maybe like your magnesium and stuff like that. It's actually just going to generally make you healthier because a healthier body, like you would say, like lifestyle factors help. So if you're sleeping better by taking some magnesium rather than trying to force a pre-workout.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? That's 10 times better. And I always say that to people, and you may agree with that type of stuff.
I do definitely. It's the lifestyle factors that make the biggest difference. But I did read on my Medichecks feedback that they recommend magnesium, zinc, and iron as well for promoting healthy hormone levels, particularly testosterone. So I think those minerals can also have like a direct effect on hormones as well as via improved sleep.
That's in my stack. Zinc and magnesium in my stack every month.
Yeah.
I saw that sprinting helps boost testosterone levels and keep testosterone levels high. I'm not going to ask you whether that's true, but one of my questions on here was, it's a little bit unrelated to what we've been talking about, but as someone who, like myself, who enjoys bodybuilding, but I do prefer sports, is it possible for people to be able to compete in bodybuilding while also playing sports at the same time, or is it one or the other?
I have heard of people doing that. There was a guy who competed with UKDFBA a couple of years ago. I can't remember his name now, but he would do a lot of running. He would do a lot of almost like long distance marathon running through his prep. And he was like this hybrid athlete. He was into long distance running, but also a bodybuilder. And I think he was in the open bodybuilding category, quite a young guy, great physique, did really well that season. So yes, it's possible.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say it's made me think about a sort of anecdote, which I sometimes tell people about my own history with sport. When I was at school, I fucking hated sport. I hated PE. I hated all the kind of rugby lad fucking clique and all of that. Like sport. At my school, you got a sports blazer if you're good at sport. I was like, oh, fuck you twats. Like all the jocks, basically. Yeah, it was like that. And I hated this organized team sport. I've never been a team sports person. I respect people that are, but it's never been for me. And I've got no coordination, no skill level whatsoever when it comes to sports. I'm terrible at like any kind of racket sports, ball sports, anything like that. And I used to be made to play rugby because I was quite tall. I hated it. I hated giving my Saturday morning up to go to some school down the motorway and play rugby and have some fucking 6'2" geezer run at me who weighs double my weight. Do you know what I mean?
I can feel this is a bit of trauma for you back in the day.
I'm revealing all my traumas on this podcast today.
This is therapy as well.
It's a full confessional. So I remember having a conversation with Mr. Morgan, my sports teacher, saying, Mr. Morgan, I just don't want to play rugby anymore. And he said, okay, fair enough. You can play hockey. He thought that'd be a punishment, but I was like, sweet, I'm fine with hockey. Just don't make me go to schools on a Saturday morning and get smashed by some 6'3" winger. So that sounds dodgy, doesn't it?
Yeah, that on a Saturday morning, mate. Blimey, you crack on, mate.
You can understand why I didn't want to do it. So he would be very surprised now if he could see me and I said I'm a professional sports person. He would not be able to believe that that was the case because I was not really sporty at school and I hated it. The only things that I was good at were like individual endurance kind of sports, like running. I was quite good at middle distance, long distance running when I was at school because it required no skill. It just required me to grit my teeth and keep going. And that's what I can do.
Can you run now in your 40s?
I can't run now, no. No. I'm too heavy and my hip doesn't like it.
His hips dislocates every time he strides, every three strides.
I'm way too heavy now. Yeah.
Um, we touched upon the therapy just as a joke there, but that was actually one
Yeah.
of my questions, if you don't mind, if Phil, if you don't mind me jumping in there, is you are a cognitive behavior therapist, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, can you explain to any listeners what that is and why did you get into that? What was, we all pick a career. What was the reasoning?
Yeah, so let me start by saying what cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT is. So it is a type of psychotherapy which is particularly good for working on depression, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, trauma, PTSD. Um, and it's based on the idea that how we feel is influenced quite a lot by what we think and what we do. So the think bit relates to the cognitive in the CBT title, and what we do obviously to the behavioral bit in the title. So if we can change what we think about situations, about problems in our lives, and if we can change what we do, how we react to them behaviorally, we might be able to change how we feel. We might feel less shit, less anxious, less depressed. So it's taking control of the things within us that we can control, our thoughts and our behavior, rather than trying to wrestle too much with the externals, the things that happen to us that we can't control.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's about. The way that I got into it, I've been a counsellor for a long time. I did a counselling postgraduate diploma, qualified in 2012, and worked as a counsellor for years. Counselling is a bit different to CBT in that it's more of like an open space where the person comes along and just talks about whatever's on their mind. There's less structure, there's less technique coming from the therapist. That's really good for something that doesn't have a solution, like bereavement. The person just needs to talk it through. Whereas something like health anxiety, that is going to be exacerbated by unhelpful thoughts and unhelpful behaviors. So that requires something like CBT. That's the difference. But in 2020, I think, again, just before COVID, I signed up to an NHS training scheme and retrained or additionally trained in cognitive behavioural therapy at Sussex Uni, and then worked for the NHS for a couple of years after that. And now I'm private, just working for private clients and insurance companies.
So you still do that alongside being a pro athlete, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what being a pro really means, and I'll just kind of say how that came about. I mentioned that I did the British finals in 2022, so that was my first season, became British champion in the Masters men's physique category. The year after, I had, on the back of the British finals, I'd received an invite to the World Championships, which was happening the next year in June in Manchester. And I thought at the time, yeah, I'm not going to do it. It's too soon. It's only sort of like 7 months away. And my wife needs a little bit of a break from me being on prep because I've been an absolute nightmare. And I just sort of shelved the email, put it to one side and thought, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I did a mini cut around, just happened to be around the time that we would have needed to start prep anyway. So March time. And it was going pretty well. And I said to my coach, should we do a photo shoot? Let's do a photo shoot. Might as well get something out of this. And that'd be a cool goal to work towards. And then a few weeks after that, I thought, this is going really well. I'm coming in really nicely. I'm looking good. Oh, do you remember that invite to the Worlds in Manchester? And I had a word with the wife and she kind of was reluctantly on board. And then we just went for it. And so it was kind of like only about 5 weeks before the Worlds that I decided to do it. Went along there to Manchester. It was an absolutely incredible event put on by the UK DFBA in affiliation with a global federation called INBA, International Natural Bodybuilding Association, based in America. So it's a global event, world championships. Lots of people from Europe there. I went along. I didn't know what the standard was going to be like in the Masters, but I thought it's going to be fucking good because it's the Worlds. Looked around backstage, and when you're backstage at a show, you've got tanned and everything. I won't go into loads of details, but you then have like about half an hour before you go on stage. It's like, right, time to pump up. So you start to get a bit of a pump, you lift some weights, do some press ups, do some pull ups. I'm looking around thinking, who are the other guys here that I think are going to be on stage with me? You're trying to suss out your competition. And I said to my coach Lewis, who was there in person with me at the time, mate, I can't see anyone here who I'm too worried about. We might fucking have this. And like, you don't want to get too cocky, but I was quite confident. Anyway, we went on stage and there were some good guys there, like a couple of the Italians, a couple of Danish guys, there was a German guy, I think. And yeah, I won basically, to cut a long story short. And I just could not fucking believe it. Like world champion. I fell to the floor. You see people do it, and I thought, really? You're putting that on? But I really, really did. Hands over my face, unbelievable. And then it was the second day of the World Championships because it's a 2-day event. And the day before, I'd seen a couple of people get their pro card. British athlete called Heather, a Danish athlete called Michael, who I know quite well now. And I just thought at the time, wow, that's fucking amazing. But obviously, I'm in the over 40s. That'll never happen for me. Like, they won't give a masters athlete a pro card. And I'm on stage collecting my award for winning. And then he says, so the MC and the head judge is like, so we'd like to invite you to the Natural Olympia next year based on the back of this win. And you can go as an amateur or a pro. I'm like, sorry, what? What? And then they
On
come
stage.
out. Yeah, on the stage, they come out holding this pro card, and that's kind of how it happened. I didn't see it coming. I hadn't been trying to get a pro card. It was just an absolutely mental experience, like pure relation to kind of become amateur world champion and turn pro in that INBA federation on the same day.
Can I ask a question with that? Do you feel that the pressure that some of us, like I've only been through it once through my own stage, but the pressure through prep and the stress can affect obviously the physique. And because you weren't even thinking about
Yeah,
being on stage and you were just naturally going, I'm just going to do a photo shoot, just going to do
yeah,
this, I'm
casual.
good. And there was no stress. Do you think,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah, I had a conversation with Lewis, my coach, just yesterday. Actually, we had a phone call catch up, and we were saying exactly the same thing. I think that prep went so well, and the look was so good at the end because I'd been under so little pressure.
wow.
Yeah,
The importance of stress management. Well, not even it wasn't even stress management with that. You just didn't even think you were going to compete, but
no.
the importance of the contributing factor of stress to a prep can have an effect on someone's physique.
Stress can have a massive effect on your physique, definitely. And I've had spells of really high stress. And coming on to your question earlier about like what does it actually mean to be a pro? Like what are the benefits? I think there are pros and cons to it. Nothing changes around your training. You still have to work just as hard. Okay, you can win some prize money, but the prize pots are pretty small in natural bodybuilding, particularly in the masters category. So there's not a load of advantages there. You suddenly then have to pay to go to international competitions because that's where most of the pro competitions happen. So last year I went to Denmark for the European Championships. That was fairly costly. And then I went to Las Vegas, which obviously was very costly. Don't begrudge those experiences at all. They were fantastic, but there's quite a big outlay. You're not really a professional because you're having to pay for this stuff. People would say to me when I first turned pro, "Oh, great, you're going to get loads of sponsorship now." And I was like, no, I've got 2,000 Instagram followers.
Mm.
That's what sponsorship relies upon. I need minimum 20,000 to get any sort of sponsorship. So
Mhm.
nothing changes there.
I've heard, and I hear this a lot from professionals and people at the top of the game. When you get a pro card, it doesn't change anything really.
What changes is that you get this massive ego boost.
Hmm.
And that is not necessarily a good thing. And like, I'll be completely honest, like a lot of what drives me, I'm not necessarily proud to admit this, is seeking ego validation, respect, recognition from other people. And the more of that you get, the more you want. Your need, I'll speak for myself, my need for it is insatiable. Like when I won that regional title, I wanted to win the British. When I won the British, I wanted to win the World. You just want more and more and more. And I found that I wanted to like be someone in the scene that was known and respected. And the bottom line is, no one really gives a fuck. Like I could have won way more and done more, and still no one would really give a fuck about me because we're all egotistical as individuals. That's human nature. And none of us are that important. So
Hmm.
I think it's important to kind of hold on to that and try to, we can't deny our egos, but try not to let all of our decisions in life be driven by ego and the need for that external validation. It's quite hard. I can't always do it, but I think that's what I've come to realize.
I say that a lot to clients. Sorry, my dog is going mental on the side of me. Could you see in the camera?
Yeah, yeah.
I say that a lot to clients. No, what? Shush. I'm gonna let her out for a second.
Sort the dog out, mate.
But yeah, do you know what? Yeah, from my point of view, like I think I'm in all right shape. I've not got a bad physique,
Mate, you're
but
in good shape. I've seen your Instagram
I'm,
profile. You're in
I'm
fucking
just
good
being
shape.
I'm being modest. I'm being modest. But
You are.
like people have said to me so many times, like, bro, sack the football off, get into the bodybuilding, and I'm like, what'd you get for it? And they're like, well, no, it actually costs you more money than you get for doing it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it then.
I think
Costly
obviously I'm
sport.
not in it for the money because there isn't any real money to be made for me. But I'm in it for that ego validation. Can't deny that. I'm battling against that because that isn't why I want to do it. And
Mm,
it's made me think because I've really had some problems with Instagram, I guess, like addiction to social media and looking for that validation through clicks and likes. And that was made much worse when I sort of tried to establish myself as an online coach, looking for that engagement, that approval, and ultimately customers. Um, but I do it for a lot more than just that ego validation and respect from other people. Like, if no one was watching, if I had to prep for a show off Instagram, and the only people that even knew that I competed were the people on on in the room on the day looking up at the stage, I'd still do it because I get a lot from it. The community of people that are there at those events that have become friends to me, particularly going abroad with them last year to Denmark and America, the camaraderie of that UK team that I was part of. Like, I'd do that even if no one was watching to be
Mm.
yeah.
part of that. It was really special. So
I th-
it is more, but it is always a battle trying to keep my ego in check, to be honest. And getting pro kind of only fueled that and helpfully, and it fueled that insatiable desire for more recognition.
yeah, I think what I was going to mention that I say a lot of that to my clients that no one cares about anyone's journey really. Like, you know, you've got to do it for yourself, and I
Yeah.
think it can be very difficult sometimes when we do think of ego and validation and stuff like that, and it can be like it can be quite hard to get past that, I think, because actually ties into one of my questions quite well, because you mentioned about Instagram, and I did want to ask, like, how have you managed obviously the ego and obviously the Instagram, and we know you've come on and off, and I wanted to kind
Yeah.
of delve into the question I had written down is, how do you manage? I can't find it. I've got so many. Social media, there you go, with mental health, with bodybuilding, with yourself, because we all go through it, and this is a conversation I've had with quite recently with quite a few people. And I wanted your take on how it's affected you and how you've managed it yourself, and how you can maybe relate to other
Mhm.
people, and people can maybe take something from it.
I think at times Instagram has, and generally Instagram has had a pretty negative effect on me. Um, if I'm totally honest, I have a vulnerability to becoming very addicted to Instagram and probably would to other forms of social media if I, signed up to TikTok, for example, which is something I'm not going to do. I think that part of it is about, wanting that recognition, which I've spoken about. Part of it on a kind of neurochemical level is about dopamine. You're getting these little dopamine hits, which can become very addictive unconsciously. Um, I did see an infographic the other day which said the average American's social media scroll per day is the height of not the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty. So, as in the amount that they swipe with their finger, that would be the distance of the height of the Statue of
Oh
Liberty.
my God, that's
I
crazy.
thought that was a cool way to compare it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing about Instagram is it's designed to be addictive. They want your eyes on that screen for as long as possible, and they have very sophisticated techniques in order to keep your attention there for as long as possible. There are very clever people working on that, like psychologists and stuff, designing their systems. And the reason they want to do that is so that they can advertise. The more people looking, the more they can show that people are looking, the more they can charge for their advertising space. But what that means is you can get easily addicted to it because it's designed to be addictive. And then you're not ending up paying attention to your family, which is what happened to me.
Hmm.
And you haven't got a good work-life balance if you're using it for work. You're looking at 11 p.m. instead of being asleep. And that all of those effects are bad as well, and they can affect your well-being and your mental health. So I have to be very careful with it. And my technique recently is to spend long periods of time off Instagram altogether, where I've deactivated my account. But even then, when I come back on, it's a slippery slope. It's just highly addictive for me. And when I was coaching and I had to be on there for work, I found that very difficult to manage.
Hmm. You've recently, I think, unfollowed quite a lot of people. Is that correct? Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you use this approach, but I was doing the kind of follow for a follow approach, follow people and then look, I was using a tool to see who hadn't followed me back or who had unfollowed me and then unfollow them. So it's kind of, I had a lot of followers, well, not a lot, but I had around an equal amount of followers and people I was following. So 2,000, 2,500. Not a lot by some people's standards. That's a lot of people's content and bullshit to be exposed to on
Hmm.
your
Mm,
feed. So
agreed.
I found that quite overwhelming. So yeah, I've gone down. My goal was to get to 100 people that I was following, a nice round number. Make sure it's real quality. I think I'm around 140. So yeah,
Has it helped?
it has to some extent. The amount of noise and the amount of like unnecessary content that I'm consuming that isn't adding value to my life has reduced a lot. But there are many different addictive um, aspects of Instagram, not just that kind of content consumption. Um,
The thing is nowadays as well, you don't just see the people you follow's content. You scroll 3 videos down, all of a sudden you're being shown random videos from pages that you've never come across, don't
yeah, yeah,
follow, and then you end up looking at those for ages as well.
yeah, and like the suggested page, whatever it's called. Yeah,
Mhm. I've unfollowed people that don't serve me the purpose, and I'm sure people have unfollowed me that don't serve a purpose, and I think that's a very strong thing to do. I unfollowed a lot of people that I was getting too jealous, or I was, thinking my life wasn't as good, and I realized that, and I've spoken about that a few times. I did it ages ago, and I continue to do so. If I find something that doesn't serve me, mentally, you try and cut as much ties as possible. It's not possible to do everything, but you
yeah.
know, if you want to protect your own mental health, I think it's very important. And I noticed that, and I just wanted to ask you if that was the same reason as what I would
Mm.
would be doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the other thing to pick up on what you said is that tendency to compare yourself to others on social media. We're all kind of prone to doing that as human beings, and we can end up falling into a trap of compare and despair, where you see everyone's highlights, you see their edited photos, see them with a pump in the gym or whatever, and you think, God, he's so much bigger than me, so much better physique than me. And particularly whilst you're on prep and you're about to be judged against other people, that's not a good habit to get into.
Mm.
Yeah, because you can then start to have a very kind of warped view of your own physique, your own progress, and start to get quite anxious and almost develop this very unhealthy, dysmorphic preoccupation with your physique. That is something that I've experienced whilst being on prep.
Yeah, nice.
Instagram can fuel that. Yeah.
Um,
But for you guys, you're coaching, so you kind of have to use it and have to manage the use of it as a business tool.
yeah, everything's run.
That's that's the tough thing. If I genuinely believe that if I didn't need Instagram to do what we do, I probably wouldn't be on there.
No, no,
So I don't really share anything about my personal life on there. Just
yeah,
People
yeah,
keep
need
it
to
for
just
know
business.
my
just the
life.
fitness stuff. Yeah, it's just your life.
It's taken me a long time to learn to enjoy it and to learn to get into the mindset. Like, again, it's my job, and I
Mm.
learned to love my job. And I always think about, and it's going a bit of tangent on me though, but like what I was doing before, this trumps it by 1 billion%.
Yeah,
So I always think about what I could be doing or instead of this, and I feel very privileged to be doing what I'm doing right now. To the point. So I always you have to approach it, but quite differently.
mm.
Um, but I wanted to tie in as well with the other question that I had was how do you manage the balance which you mentioned about family, and how do you manage it as a dad, work, and bodybuilding and the support network, and how you managed to do that over, over the last few years, and how
Yeah.
it's been.
Well, at times I haven't done it very well, if I'm honest. Um, in my opinion, prep would be quite easy if it was just about me. And like, I don't wish to be a single young man. Well, I wish to be a young man, but not a single man. I value my wife and my family. I'm certainly not saying that I don't appreciate them. But I think that for a single person with no responsibilities to other people, really, prep could be very easy, to be honest. What I find hardest about it is balancing what I need to do, which is quite extreme and quite selfish, with my responsibilities and obligations to my wife and daughters. I've got two daughters. So I haven't always balanced those things particularly well. There have been times when they've suffered because of a choice, a selfish choice that I'm making, again, like I said, based on ego a lot of the time. They don't benefit from it. They don't give a fuck if I win a trophy. They're happy with me the way that I am. So it can be really, really difficult. And like energy levels, um, the amount of time you've got, because doing all the things you need to do on prep is time consuming, all the cardio, all the steps, the spending the money on going to shows and going abroad for shows, and particularly spending the family budget on that. So it can impact family, and it can affect, your intimate relationship as well. We've talked about the effects of low testosterone. So that can have an impact there. And these are all really important aspects of those relationships with family. So it can be really hard. What I would say though, and hopefully my wife would agree with this, I think I have learned from my mistakes from one prep to another, and I've prepped 3 times now. I do think that most people, myself included, make kind of rookie mistakes. They allow a real preoccupation with the competition that's coming up, a real preoccupation with their physique. And it can become all consuming where you've just got no bandwidth or headspace for anything else that's important to you in your life. That's a mistake. That preoccupation has to be managed. If you're ticking all the boxes and doing everything you need to do to get your physique ready and your posing ready for the competition, then thinking about it 24/7 outside of that isn't adding anything positive. It's probably just doing everyone else's head in, including yours. So I've learned to do less of that. I still fell into that trap a little bit on this most recent prep towards the end, where I became completely obsessed, and that wasn't helpful. But it's little tips I've learned, like when you're brushing your teeth, even if it's in summer, wear a t-shirt. Don't stare at your physique unnecessarily in the mirror, because that's just fueling that preoccupation with your fucking abs. No one gives a fuck about your abs apart from on the day. Just think about them on the day. Do you know
Wear
what
an
I mean?
apron.
You need to stare at them. Yeah. So it's those kind of things really. And I said this on a different podcast. It's just kind of manning up and having the discipline to find the energy to do the things you need to do. Don't slack off on the fucking household chores. You've still got to do your bit. And sometimes it's mind over matter. Your mind is telling you, no, I'm fucked. I've barely eaten anything. I've done 90 minutes on a Stairmaster. I can't do it. You fucking can, and you have to. This is a
Did you
choice
did
you're making. Don't let it impact on your family.
did you have scenarios where, there were times where you got back and, your wife was like, we need to do this, and you're like, I just physically can't?
In my first prep, yeah, in 2022, I remember a day out on the beach, and we had one of those like blow up dinghy things. And she was like, "Come on, blow it up for the kids. Take the kids out, row them around the sea for a bit." I just couldn't do it. I could barely stand up, and that's just really not acceptable, is it? To have nothing left for your family.
You
So
you should have
it's
seen
hard.
Dom when he was on his prep. Like usually I see him in the gym, give him a hug, we have a little joke, and when he was on his prep, I'll
Couldn't even
get
speak.
I'll give him a wide berth for at least
Yeah.
a good 2 months where we didn't barely even spoke because
Had the
he
hood
had
up
his
and like,
head
just,
up,
what's
head
up?
down, like just
Yeah.
looked angry at the world, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna leave him alone.
You've got to take it to a dark place to get in stage condition. In my experience, that has got easier. Like I don't want to sound like a dickhead, but I do find prep physically relatively easy. Like I can suffer, and like yeah, I do have little energy, and at times it's shit, but most of the time I really enjoy it. It is the impact that I inevitably have on others negatively that is really hard for them and subsequently for me.
It's a selfish sport, but also a sport that, it's a touchy subject, isn't it? Because no one really understands unless you do the prep. So, like for me,
Mm.
Naomi never understood. It caused a lot of rift and this, and obviously I was doing the coaching at the same time, and I was trying to create YouTube videos, and I was
Hard,
documenting
mate.
my
Yeah.
dirt journey. Blessed, like I look back now and I think, cool, no wonder you probably nearly wanted to break up with me
Yeah.
because the attention I gave was very, very little, and you don't really realize that in the moment. That's the way I experienced it anyway.
Mm. I
But
think particularly for me, first time round, it was more like that. Yeah, I think you do learn from prep to prep, and you do put strategies in place, but it's an ongoing learning curve, I think.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can I get a bit of ego validation and talk about my most recent competitions, Denmark and Vegas?
Go on, off you go, off you go.
So Europeans in Denmark last October, I turned up and I was like, oh, great, over 40s. Where's the over 40s pros category? And they're like, no, there is no over 40s. You're in with the younger guys. So it was me on stage with four other pros in men's physique, like open age men's physique, so no masters category.
So it could
Uh,
be anywhere between 18 and 50.
in theory, no upper age limit, but I think I was the oldest pro on the stage, I
Mhm.
believe. I think the guy who won was probably early 30s, fantastic Danish athlete called Daniel Arflet, I think his name is. Um, really amazing physique. He won. Bobby Fotheringham, who's quite a well-known pro, came second, and I came third. So that was good. I was pretty happy with third. And then the Olympia a month later went out to Vegas. I didn't really know who was going to be there or how many, but there was a masters category over 40s in the pros, and there were 11 of us on stage. So it's the biggest lineup I've ever been in. And I came third again. So again, I was pretty happy
Yeah,
with.
bro. Yeah, can you explain the Olympia for anyone who doesn't know, as what is the Olympia in terms of bodybuilding and what you do? What stature is it? So you can kind of go on. I'm
Well,
big.
it says on the t-shirt the
Yeah.
pinnacle. That's what they claim it is, at least. I have to be careful because I'm representing PMBA as one of their pro athletes. They claim that it's the pinnacle of the sport. Now, other federations obviously would say, well, no, our competition is the pinnacle of the sport, like the WMBF World Championships. That's open for debate. They're both very high profile competitions, but I suppose the Olympia could be seen as like the Olympics of the sport or the World Cup in football. It's the kind of
World
yeah,
Cup final.
yeah, World Cup final, like the pinnacle of the sport. It's seen that way. Yeah, it was held in the Golden Nugget big casino in the downtown Las Vegas. So that was pretty cool to be there doing that and to go on stage with 11 pros from around the world, lots of Americans who are really high standard. It was cool, really cool experience. There's always going to be part of me that like wants to win because obviously I'm a competitive athlete. I've got that desire within me. But I have to step back and say, look, a third place in the pros is better than winning in the amateurs. But there's part of your brain that wants the elation of the win, whether it's in the amateurs or the pros. But it's kind of like, well, would you rather top the championship or come middle of the table in the Premier League?
Yeah,
Premier League's better, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's a great analogy. And another analogy for anyone listening, imagine like Joe being in the World Cup final football in whatever Wimbledon final, whatever it is, final
Over 40s.
over 40s, but still
Well, no, open age in the
open
Euros.
age as well. And it,
Yeah.
but for any, like I said, if anyone listening, Joe is at the very top of the game when it comes to natural men's physique over 40s.
Oh, thank you, mate. That's good enough for my ego. Ego
There you go.
massive.
We'll end it there. We just cut that and just show everyone. But it's true.
You're
It's
gonna
true. I
need to
think I
bring
don't.
me down a peg or two now, mate.
But I've said this to you before in the gym. Like I don't think some people realize how far well, not how far, how well you've done in the game and where you are. Like you are at the very, very top of what you physically probably can. Well, not physically can do. Like you could come first. Like obviously, I'm not trying to pull you down or anything. But
Hopefully.
third is still. But like you are still at the like you said, your t-shirt is the pinnacle of bodybuilding for you. Like what's more than what you have now? Like what is more?
and that one of my questions actually
Well, it's
was
winning, I suppose, as a pro. Sorry, Phil, go on.
one of my questions on there was what is your end goal
That's one of
in
my questions as well.
in regards to
I,
like
I,
bodybuilding and how
I
far
don't
you try.
think I don't think I have one. I've got this far by just sticking to the basics in the gym each week, just buying into that bodybuilding lifestyle and just kind of make it up as I go along. That's a pretty shit answer, but first and foremost, like I've bought into a bodybuilding lifestyle. That's what I love, and these things have almost just happened like along the way, and they're cool, and I'm really proud, and I'm really not on my deathbed, can say that I've achieved some of these things and feel pretty cool about it and feel good, and hopefully die in peace. That's pretty morbid, isn't it? But yeah, I don't know what's next. I mean, I'd like to compete again. That is a conversation that I have to have with my wife. I need her buy-in. I need to reassure her that I'm going to do things with as little impact on her as possible, and I need her permission. Ultimately, we're a team, and I'm not going to go rogue on that. So I would like to compete again, possibly in 2026, but that is a conversation I've got to have with her. I sound proper whipped, don't I? But I think it is right to approach it in that way because, like we said, it has a massive impact on our partners. And ultimately, all this fucking ego validation that I've talked about, that doesn't mean anything if I don't have those core relationships in my life. I've got to get things into perspective, but they're what matter most.
Yeah.
The trophies and the accolades are the icing on the cake.
This is where you mentioned it's easier for people that aren't in a relationship or maybe don't have the responsibilities of a family, a house and stuff like that. And I've definitely seen that. I think there's been huge advantages to.
They can be more selfish, can't they, without consequence?
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Have you got any other questions, Phil?
Do you know what? I do have literally one more question. He answered a lot of my questions without me even needing to ask anything. So yeah. One of the podcasts that me and Dom most recently did was around building programs for our clients. So just out of interest, what does a typical training program look like for someone like you in competing and for like Mr. Olympia and that?
Well, for men's physique, you want quite a well-developed upper. Like I said, you wear board shorts. There is a trend now to wear the board shorts quite tight, which I do. So quads really are on display, but through the shorts. But there is less emphasis on leg development. So still train legs, but maybe once a week rather than like twice a week that you might do if you're in classic or open bodybuilding categories. And then it's a lot of upper work. So chest, back, delts, arms, abs. Want really nice, good abs on stage. And genetically, my abs are a strong point. Without meaning to sound big-headed, like they are a strong body part genetically. But that meant that I did slack off on them for quite a while, thinking I don't need to train abs. I've got wicked abs. This year, I'm not being complacent about that. I want them to be better. But it's going to be different for everyone, really. It should be different. Your coach should be looking at your physique and saying, what body parts do we need to bring up based on what we're seeing, based on what the judges have fed back? So the judges have consistently fed back to me that I get beaten on my back. Some of that is down to muscular development, not enough kind of density and thickness, particularly in the mid-back, width of the lats as well, to be fair. Some of it's down to posing and being able to open up my back on stage effectively. I've struggled with that. So we program around that. And then other body parts as well. Lewis, my coach, just yesterday actually said we're going to do like these kind of mesocycles, like 12-week blocks, where we'll really focus on a particular body part that we want to bring up. So that could be really interesting. But so it should be tailored. That's my answer, really. Yeah.
Thank you, Rory.
That was going to go to my last question, which is tips for training and nutrition that's helped you or your clients. And are you still coaching?
I'm not still open for coaching. No, I've got a couple of clients that are kind of good friends that I've continued to coach, kind of mates rates coaching, and just that I'm personally invested in their journey. One older guy, Rob, who competed in Masters amateur bodybuilding not last year, was it last year?
Yeah, last year.
It was last year. It was last year. He came third in UK DFBA, so that was great to get a trophy as a coach. And I've continued to coach him in his off season. And then Ryan, who you guys may know, and Dom, I know you know, he's doing a photo shoot on Sunday actually, and he's looking fantastic. Like I'm super proud of him. He's absolutely smashed it, and he's really trained and lived like an athlete, and that's had an impact on his family life in the way we've discussed. So fair play to his missus as well, and his daughter. But he's lived like an athlete, like he's a true athlete. So really, really proud of what we've achieved, and we're sharing some stuff on Instagram around that. But yeah, in answer to your question, I'm not coaching, not open to coaching, and I'm actually probably going to scale some of that work down as well. Me and Ryan are going to take a break. He's going to go into an off season independently to start off with. The reason that I didn't like coaching, or it wasn't for me, was that one, it required a lot of time on Instagram. I've talked about that, didn't suit me. Um, and two, it's fucking hard. It's really hard to coach people. I think that the danger is that, you do a cut, you get shredded, you think, sweet, I can coach people. I've done it myself. Or maybe you win a trophy on a bodybuilding stage, you think, I can coach. And it's not that easy. It's not about just writing a plan for someone, writing a nutrition plan. You've got to be a behavior coach. You've got to potentially be an addiction counselor. If someone has a food addiction, then how are you going to solve that problem with them? That could be why they're overweight. It's not as simple as telling them what to eat. You've got to coach them to battle an addiction. And food addiction is one of the hardest ones to solve, because if you're addicted to alcohol or drugs, you can just not be around alcohol and drugs. Don't go into a pub. Don't buy alcohol. You can't not be around food. You can't separate yourself from it in that way. So it's really a difficult job as a behavior change specialist. And I think you guys, you're experienced coaches, you will have developed behavior change specialism now. But not everyone has that. And there are plenty of coaches that assume they can just do that job. And it's hard. The marketing is hard on Instagram, and the actual work can be really hard. I don't know if you guys would agree with that.
Yeah, you're not just PT. Yeah,
You're on an emotional journey with every single one of your clients. They all have different needs, different things going on, different things that they need help and advice and support with.
Yeah,
And
you're like a life coach, aren't you?
yeah, you take on all of that with some of them. Do you know what I mean? And especially if you build like a good enough relationship with them, that they tell you everything. And you if you're not good at not taking it on board yourself, you can like absorb that as well.
Yeah, you have to be good. People say that to me as a therapist, like, "Oh, you must be so naturally empathic." And I say, "No, if I was naturally empathic, I'd be fucked." Because I'd be going to bed at night thinking about all the shit I've been told, the terrible stuff about people's trauma and that. You have to be able to switch it on and off. Otherwise,
I
you burn out.
think that takes a lot of time as well. Going into the industry, you learn a lot, and you learn how to manage people. I think it is. I think more so, it's more about managing people at the beginning, and then it slowly intertwines into the nutrition and into the training and how to deal with what they're going through and how to give them advice and to be
And
the
encouragement, isn't it? And praise
yeah.
that people need that. Yeah, what was the other part of your question? Was it just general training and nutrition tips?
Yeah. Anything that's helped you yourself, anything that so if anyone's listening, let's say it's a 28-year-old boy, lad or female, and they're listening and they're going, God, I wonder what any tips that Joe would give, in the gym, who's at the
Yeah.
top of his game in the bodybuilding industry.
Well, I think one of the things that clicked for me is that I was training like a fucking pussy up until a certain point. I kind of heard people talking about training to failure, and not everyone trains to failure. Not everybody should, depending on what they're trying to achieve. But that is one of the ways to bring about muscle development, hypertrophy. That most successful bodybuilders use training to failure now, and that requires a certain type of mindset that you have to develop to push through a pain barrier, dig deep, and find extra reps in yourself. And it's often the mind that is the limiting factor rather than the body. So you've got to find a way to overcome that. And I'm still working on it. Like I'm by no means there. My back as a lagging body part shows that I struggle to reach failure on pull day. Something that I just hate the way it feels. And so my mind caves before my back fails. And I'm still working on that. But yeah, learning to train to failure as an ongoing project would be a top tip. You could phrase that as stop training like a pussy.
And do you know what? Yeah, that's where I feel like having a coach, if you feel like you're a person who
Yeah.
is training in the gym but not getting to your full potential,
Yeah.
where like having a coach comes into play, because I'll be training clients and they're about to stop and I'm like, nah, keep going.
Oh, yeah.
They'll get so much more out of it. And I've had a few of them say, if I was on my own, I'd have stopped there. And
Yeah,
I'm like, and
I
it's
totally agree. I
the
mean,
reps
yeah,
where the magic happens.
yeah, yeah. Those last few reps, exactly. I've heard you say that as well, Dom. I totally agree with what you said there. Feel like those last few reps are the ones that really count. Yeah, I totally agree. If you get a coach, get an in-person coach if you want that in-session support to get those few extra reps. Get an online coach to oversee your training plan, your nutrition, to check in each week. That's been absolutely essential for me to have Lewis doing that for the last 5 years with me. Wouldn't achieve what I have achieved without him doing that. So that'd be the other tip, really.
That's a big one. You know, one of the best athletes in the over 40s, men's physique, Joe, saying he needs the coach as well. So
Definitely.
there's a lot of people out there that go, why do you need a coach? Why do you need to do this? Why are you investing into a PT? It's easy.
The thing is, we have blind spots, don't we? So we can't see things about ourselves that other people will be able to, especially someone with a lot of expertise. Um, Hopefully, the coach that you pick will have a lot of expertise. And particularly when you're on prep and you're very depleted of energy and
Mhm.
you're developing mild athlete related body dysmorphia, you can't see things objectively. Your coach can. So, what I've said to people in the past and said to myself is let the coach do the thinking.
Mm.
Don't overthink because your mind is compromised when you're in this state. You've paid your coach to do the thinking for you. Send your check in and do what the coach fucking says. Don't deviate from that plan. Don't start thinking about shit for yourself. Within reason, obviously, if your coach tells you to start injecting 600 milligrams of testosterone, you need to have a think about that, which a lot of coaches do with that kind of advice. So I'm not saying don't think for yourself at all, but once you trust your coach and you're in the process, particularly on prep, then really kind of buy into that trusting relationship and let them guide you. Yeah,
Awesome, mate.
that'd be
Thank
another
you
tip.
very much, buddy.
And
Uh,
and the other thing for like a 20 or 8-year-old who might be thinking about competing is just do it. Just fucking go for it. What have you got to lose? It's going to be a fantastic experience whether you win or lose, and you're not going to regret it.
banging.
Love that.
Um, I've got two Q&As from, well, it was three, but you already answered one of them. I believe you've probably already answered this one. Oh, no, not probably not, but one of them was, how would you do your shows any different? Is there anything that you look back on and go, could have done that?
Yeah, posing.
Like we all do, but for yourself.
Yeah, posing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Posing is a really tricky art and it differs from one category to another that like we said earlier, like the style of posing that you need to do. I did a lot of prep in posing and had lessons for each competition. So it wasn't that let me down. It was more managing my nerves on stage day. And like my posing had been a lot better in the practice room 2 days before, for example. Then you get on stage under the lights in Las Vegas and you start to fucking flap a little bit, or I do.
Yeah.
Um, to anyone else looking at it, they might have thought his posing's fine. But for me, I know I've made mistakes. I know that it's not as confident as it could be. And that's partly around practicing technique, but it's partly around managing nerves as well. So yeah, it's that I would, and that's something that I want to do in the future if I compete, get posing to look a lot better, a lot more confident.
Chest and abs are just fucking phenomenal anyway. You don't need to do any of that anymore.
Thank you, mate.
And the last question for me, and then Phil can ask any last ones. This was on the Q&A. Oh no, you already answered it pretty much. Any advice for the young bodybuilding just starting? Yeah, you've already answered that.
That was my last question as well.
Yeah, cool. We've covered a lot, guys.
Any
Think-
last thoughts? We are all good.
I'm
Man,
looking at
I've
my
learned
notes.
I've learned so much because like I say, people are always saying get on stage, and I'm like, nah, it's not for me, it's not for me. But I've never even really looked into it or considered it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Need a
I've
strong,
learned.
need a strong why. You know, if you're just doing it because fun.
That's it. I don't have a why strong enough to make me want to do it. And
Fair enough.
I've always been told you can't do cardio, so you can't play football. Like at the age that I am now, I've only got a few years left of being able to keep up with like the youngsters that are starting to get to improve now. So I'm like, I just want to play football until.
Is that your main thing, football?
Do you know what? I only just play it for fun, but I still like. I just enjoy playing it. I play 3-4 times a week,
Nice.
and I don't want to give that up.
No, fair play, man. I think, if you're being encouraged to compete by mates and that, and you're thinking, no, it's not for me, maybe it's not for you and you shouldn't do it. But for me, it was kind of like I would say, nah, no, I wouldn't do that. But it was fear that
Mm.
was holding me back initially. Fear of getting on stage, in a pair of shorts, or I had thought about like, doing the open bodybuilding in a fucking G-string. Thought, no way, that'd be super embarrassing. But actually, once you get over that fear, it's just a positive experience generally. The prep is hard. It can have an impact on family life, which you've got to manage. But
Mhm.
show day is just a fantastic experience generally. The relationships you make with other athletes and the people that are running the events, the part of the community is just brilliant. So I'd massively recommend it to people that are sitting on the fence.
Mm.
You learn a lot about yourself, I think, and what you're actually capable of. Like if you look back at the things that probably you yourself, Joe, you did as well, you would think, fucking hell, I can't believe I did that. I look back now going, how did I do all of that in the morning, the posing, the cardio, the steps, all before fucking 7:30 a.m. before I started um, coaching and doing my own work. I'm like, what the hell?
Character building shit.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. It was made me the coach I am today, I think, for sure. I think it gave me the extra tools
Yeah.
needed to get
Yeah.
more transfer.
You've taken it to that level and you don't necessarily need to compete. But I think if you're asking clients to jump on a Stairmaster for an hour or, go on low calories and really push it with calorie restriction, you don't really want to be asking them to do something you haven't done yourself,
Mm.
ideally.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to push it as a coach yourself and see what you can achieve.
That was my biggest reason. That was my biggest why. My biggest why was I want to do this so clients can look at me as a figure of authority and to also go, wow, he's actually done it. Then I could say, right, this is what you now need to do if you want to just lose, drop some body fat or get
Yeah.
into a bit more better condition. My reason was just for my clients. It actually wasn't to win and it wasn't for myself, which people may say it should be for yourself, but that really would, from my point of view, wasn't. It was purely down for me being as the best coach as I can be, and for clients to look and say, yeah,
Yeah.
that's my
I
coach.
think I think you did really well though to come third in an open competition where there would have been people using potentially quite a lot of
Mm,
performance enhancing drugs on that stage. For you to hold your own amongst those guys, first show on a PCA stage, it's a good result, mate.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll be at your level at some point. I'll be on the Masters soon.
Don't wish your life away, mate.
Guy, where can people find you watching listening to this podcast? Where can they find you? Where your Instagram?
So yeah, my Instagram is Joey Too Bad. I think it's Joey Joey underscore the number two and then bad. Joey Too Bad. Um, that's about it, really. I'm not going
And
to tell you where I live.
no, not my emails, my page number. Well, did you want, if anyone wanted to look for a cognitive behavioral therapist, is it, yeah, are you taking clients on or is that
I
private?
do, yeah, I do some private work, but it's mainly insurance company work. I guess I'm not sort of really advertising my services as a therapist, but if people are listening to this and want to contact me on that Instagram account to talk about therapy, then I'm open to that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Joe, for being on this podcast. It's been one of my
You're
Thank
welcome.
you,
favorites so
Joe.
Thanks
far.
for having me.
And guys, we'll be speaking to you on the next one. Take care.